The portal is open. Which teams are using it to secure a playoff berth? Grab a drink and join us on this week's Tailgate. Hey, what's up, everybody? Thanks for joining us again on this week's Tailgate. I am Luke.
I'm Michael.
I'm Dennis.
That was a good one.
That was nice and quick, nice and concise.
Yeah.
Speaking of, let's get to our
word of the
sponsor.
day right there. He's been using
Nice,
it.
quick, and concise, just like our sponsor, Explore Nash. If you're looking for any kind of content concerning the Middle Tennessee area, you want to know about any news, politics, or just adventures or fun places to eat, check them out at Explore Nash on Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. So, we originally made an announcement last week that we're doing the Tailgate Awards, first annual, in the inaugural Tailgate Awards.
It is hard to say,
It is hard to say. Like
inaugural.
Yours. It's like yours. But we didn't realize or anticipate an issue with polling on YouTube.
Sorry.
Yes. So we are going to do the poll again for this next week. So it'll be up through the 26th.
No, Fafita.
Are you just trying to like subliminally message to people?
No, Fafita.
Yeah, Fafita. There will be a link to our X or Twitter Twitter profile with the poll on it. So please go and fill that out. We've got no.
You just have to click a button.
You just have to click a button. Well, actually, really two. You click the link and then click the button.
Yep.
Yeah, and then you click Dylan Johnson and you'll be fine.
Yeah. So we got Noah Fafita, the QB from the outstanding QB from Arizona, who did a phenomenal job this year.
And then two running backs.
And then Dylan Johnson, who picked up the slack when Penix was lacking.
From Washington.
Mind you, he was
From
able to pick
Washington.
up the slack from a Heisman player.
A Heisman contender,
Yeah.
sure.
Does anybody have Heisman contenders on your teams that they were picking up the slack from? No? Okay.
And which just means that your guy didn't have to work as hard.
It means when the person was only throwing less than 200 yards, the dude stepped up. You know?
He ran for 200.
No,
He did.
Anyways, and then there's Cody Schrader of Missouri.
I mean, I'll give it to him. Like, he ran over just UT like there's no tomorrow. It looked like they had a USC defense. So,
right.
I guess.
Yes.
Well, and he's short, so
He is short.
Hey,
He's short but stout.
we
I'm
talk.
proud of it.
We talk, okay? Leave us alone.
it's okay.
Okay.
No,
Short Kings. Short Kings.
All the way.
But yes, go and vote on that. It'll be up. The poll will be up through the 26th. We do want to give people legitimate chances to vote. So right now, only us three have voted, which is not really how this works. But essentially, just go and vote for that, and that'll be on in the YouTube comments below, and it'll take you to our Twitter, our X, where you can vote in that poll. But this past weekend, there was some things going on. There was obviously lots of bowl games and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But let's not talk about that first. We've got an actually more important game that happened this past weekend. Dennis, you want to tell us about that one?
Yeah, the D2 champs, that Division II championship game.
Yeah.
It was, honestly, I actually loved it. The team, Harding University, when I saw them, when I saw those stats and got the update that they won the game, I was kind of blown away. I first got the ESPN update saying, hey, they won another championship. It's great. Then I saw a little bit more details where they only threw 57 passes all year. And I'm
That's
like,
ridiculous.
how is that even possible?
So just for those of you listening,
Yeah.
52 passes all year. So that wasn't like in the championship game. That wasn't in the playoffs. That was 52 passes in the year.
It's 56, according to this new updated poll.
Oh, gotcha.
It's
So
56.
56. Okay,
Only
sorry.
26 completions all year.
And only one interception.
And only one interception.
So it's very impressive.
But then look at the rushing yards.
Oh, the rushing yards. It no tomorrow. I swear. It was like somebody playing the old
60
NCAA games.
6,300 rushing yards.
And I believe it was 79 touchdowns for the team has set. So I was kind of surprised they didn't have any 2,000-yard rushers. I'm not going to lie. But it seemed like the team was extremely balanced. I believe the one that had the longest or the most amount of yards was 1,300, and then you had another one who was 1,100. So it was like it was definitely a team effort.
Yeah.
It wasn't like no person just kind of sticking out more than anything.
Well, and their defense, like you can't stop mentioning their defense.
No,
Yeah.
their defense was averaging. They only let about 10.86 points a game.
Yep.
So it was really just when their offense is averaging over 40 points a game, their defense is averaging less than 11 points.
And they're holding all their on average, they're holding other offenses to less than 200 yards a game,
Yeah,
Right.
it's
which
just
is insane.
Yeah, they
100%
the
impressive.
total for rushing they allowed 1,032 rushing yards this year, and they allowed 2,671 passing yards and 22 touchdowns. So just they had 97 total touchdowns. They
Like-
allowed 22 total touchdowns. I mean, it was an amazing performance, and yeah, it's D2, but I mean, even at D2, this is
Like, It's not something
incredible.
you can like overlook that
No.
easily.
No,
Not at all.
So,
honestly, wouldn't be surprised if they got invited to join D1. Like just the way they continue to play. I mean, you go 15-0, and like you don't even squirm. Like all the teams they beat up on, it was just kind of an onslaught all year.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just like kind of looking back at their scores. I mean, they beat the first team beat the first three teams by over 30 points each
Golly.
in each game. And so it's just like,
Yeah.
and the only game they seemed to struggle was
the championship game goes 38-7.
no. They had one right before that. They had it was on December 2nd. It was against Grand Valley State, and it was 7-6. That was the only game that they had less than 10 points all year.
That's insane.
Okay. Yeah.
And so but yeah, like even then, like most of they just annihilated the number one team in D2, and by 31 points in the championship, which is just insane.
Yeah, it's just I feel like at a certain point, like yes, it's a D2 school, but you got to play some D1 competition. Like at this point, like if you're just annihilating teams like left and right,
Yeah,
It's
it's
just-
probably time to move up.
like there's plenty of and people are gonna be like, hey, well they have no passing game. There's a few schools and stuff like that don't do any kind of throws whatsoever. So it's like, what's another school or what's another team that's gonna have basically just focusing on the run?
Mm-hmm.
So I would love to. I personally love the ground and pound type game. I love what just when it comes to that kind of old fashioned football. Just we're gonna run over you, we're gonna run through you, we're gonna run around you, whatever we gotta do, but we're gonna run the ball. And you're gonna have to pace this one way or another.
Yep.
So
Yep.
I love that smash mouth football personally.
It's really cool. Again, granted, I don't know how well they would technically do against a D1 school that has a good front seven, but it would be interesting to see like what kind of trouble they would give.
Yeah, I mean, even if you go say like a mid conference or anything, or just even as an independent, play a couple kind of other mid programs, I feel like that kind of would just I see if they win a couple games, it would be pretty unbelievable.
Yep.
Oh yeah, for sure. But that doesn't really lead us into anything. But it's just one of those things, like just talking about just talent disparities and whatnot. Are we about to see some crazy talent disparity shift with certain teams in this transfer portal that's just decided to be on fire?
Yeah. There have been so many. I mean, it's like over 1,100 players now
Yep.
who have entered the portal. You're seeing teams, like Ohio State, for instance, I think has lost 14 players. I know Florida State has lost, I think it was like 14 or 17 or something like that. I mean, it's amazing how many players are kind of looking for greener pastures, looking for a little bit more playing time, looking for a little, more green in their pocket. There's lots of reasons why these guys are going. But I think the big one for me, and they're, I think, rated at the top right now of using the transfer portal, is Colorado. Colorado has just been kind of stacking up on players, and Dion is doing exactly what he said he was going to do, and he's getting some top-level talent on the offensive line. Now I know what's the big offensive lineman that they got.
Well, he's not in the transfer portal. He's in the 2024 class.
Yes,
Yeah.
he's in the 24 class.
He's looking like he might actually decommit.
Yep.
But we'll know more about that on the 20th, which unfortunately we won't be covering.
But I mean, you've got some defensive linemen, a couple 4-star defensive linemen, a 4-star receiver coming over from Villanova, 4-star tight end, linebackers. I mean, they're just.
I'm really kind of enjoying the transfer portal as a whole. I know I've discussed with you guys before where I love it because it's like it's players from small programs that probably didn't get like that much of an eye when they're coming out of high school, or even probably if they went the Joku route, they didn't get much eyes. But now, like, hey, they played 1 year or a couple of years on a small program or mid-level program. Now they're able to get to a top-level program, be able to play, transfer to Ohio State, be able to play for, one of the good SEC teams, and that goes to the playoffs and such. So, like, it kind of shines that light, like how Michael said like earlier with the Missouri running back. He came, I believe he said, from a D2 or D3 school.
Mm-hmm. It's D2.
D2 school, and transfer within 1 year being with Missouri.
Yeah,
his first season.
His first season was 2022.
Yeah. So, and
he was a walk-on.
Yeah,
he was a walk-on.
From what I saw, he was actually dominating the previous division too, as well. So, like, he's a dominant player.
Stop talking this guy up.
No, I mean, I want to give it to you the fact that, like, even a Division II player, can run all over like an SEC team, and so, like, when it's always said, hey, the talent is so separated, you can find that diamond in the rough and be able to kind of change your whole entire program.
Well, and I mean, you think of this from not just kind of like the diamond in the rough, because I mean, yeah, we definitely, like, this is giving the kids an opportunity to come in and prove themselves, and then kind of go into a better situation year over year. But it's going to help young coaches. So you think of like the coach at Northwestern who kind of took over a really rough time in that program, and then led them to a 6-6 record. Like, he's going to get some eyes, right? There's going to be teams. So you're going to have some new coaches who are also able to build up a team and build up a program a little bit quicker than they might have previously.
Typically, it'll take like 4 or 5 years to see that kind of development of the program.
But now you literally, I mean, think about, like, again, Dion with Colorado, 1 year. Yes, he went from 1 to 3 wins, or what?
4.
Yeah, 4 wins. 1 to 4, but it's going to be pretty easy for him to possibly kind of make that even next step and get to that, 6-6, 7.
I mean, the way he's pulling in players, not even just on recruiting, but just with a transfer portal, I would not be surprised if he's able to be a 500 team just next year. You'd be able to go to a bowl game. Like,
I mean, I think that I think Colorado, there's just an inherent issue there where he's got a ceiling of at probably best 8-4. Especially with them moving into the pack, moving into the Big 12. Like, they're going to be facing stiffer competition from a standpoint, at least defensively.
I think that's going to be the big thing, is the offenses aren't going to be as potent.
Nope.
Defenses are going to be a lot more.
Yep.
It's going to be more focused on defense than anything.
So,
and if he's not able to really patch the offensive line like he thinks he's going to, especially if Seton decommits or whatnot, which that would be a big loss for them, be a big win for the rest of college football.
Right.
But it would be a big loss for Colorado. It's just like, once you start getting in dealing with the Oklahoma States or the Baylors or Kansas State, those types of defense, or even UCF, like, where they're showing themselves to actually be like a really potent defense, and get after the quarterback. Like, Shedeur is not going to have a good season next year. It's going to be really rough for him. Now, if he's able to fill in the holes, if they're able to fill in the holes and gaps in the offensive line, like they're hoping to in this offseason, then you could see a pretty dangerous Colorado team. Now, granted, they're going to still have to contend with Utah and things like that. It's not like they're just going to be able to walk in and have the most dominant offense, because they really still only have one weapon, which is just Travis.
Well, they've gotten a few receivers and I think a tight end in the portal. So I mean, I think he's doing, at least at Colorado, he's doing it the right way. He's really stacking up his defense a little bit more. We'll see.
But the one team that is stacking up their defense even more is Ole Miss.
Yes.
Ole Miss, Lane Kiffin knows that they are anemic in the defense, and he went to the portal heavy-handed, strictly going after defense, with the exception of Juice Wells from South Carolina for offense as the wide receiver, which is a really good wide receiver. But I mean, he's pulling in 5 stars and high 4 stars for his defensive line. And I think he's really expecting that to be to give them that playoff berth. I think that's a realistic goal for them. I mean, theoretically, this year would have been a playoff berth for them if it was a 12-team playoff. and with where they're currently ranked. But I think that's their goal is to make sure that they don't lose momentum going into next year. And somebody Old Miss opened up their pocketbook somewhere because they found some NIL money. Because I'll tell you, Walter Nolan doesn't go places without NIL money.
No. Well, not only that, but they also extended Kiffin's contract.
Yep.
So obviously they like the route that he's going. But yeah, I mean, I think looking at the names that are on this, his defense is going to be
could be very good.
Could be very good. Is going to be 100% different than it was this past year.
I mean, they learned where it was like, hey, he can't coach him, so let's go ahead and buy them.
Right.
That's the technique that they're going.
I think the biggest concern is going to be whether or not these guys all have synergy with each other.
Right.
Like that's it. Yeah, you can get some raw talent. I mean, I know firsthand as being a Tennessee fan, like Tyler Barron is a very talented dude, and it stinks that we lost him. But at the same time, we had a lot of people that could replace him at that edge rusher place. But he doesn't always work well in specific situations, and that's the reason why he was the weak edge rusher on our team. He wanted to be the strong edge rusher, and that's one of the things I was hearing that they weren't going to let him be, and it's just because that's just not his forte.
Well, and then you've got Princely, I can never say his name.
Yeah,
Princely, who in Florida talked a big game, made fun of Utah before the game that Utah came out and beat them, and then did nothing. Again, a guy who lots of raw talent, lots of potential there, but just has used his mouth more than his athletic ability in a lot of areas. So it's kind of this, like you said, can these guys find a way to make it work together?
Well, and the thing is too, I get that they're using still the same rating that they were given basically out of high school. I think that needs to stop.
Yeah.
They need to be rating them based upon their previous year. Because Walter Nolan was injured for some of this year, and he was not nearly as good as people were making him out to be. Is he bad? No, he's a good D lineman, but he's not.
Is he?
He's not a 5-star.
Yeah. I think it's kind of hard though. Like depending on obviously the year of the player, the player's like say a junior or senior, then I totally agree. Get that high school ranking out of the way. But if I feel like the player is still a freshman, sophomore season, I feel like you could still kind of go off that. Depending on where they went to school at first,
depending on how many snaps they played too. Yeah. He was a starter, so you can't he did not. He was not as much of a playmaker as people make him out to be at Texas A&M this past year, because he was injured for some of the season, and so he didn't play as many snaps as some of his counterparts. And so that by itself, if an injured player hurts a team, then you being injured should also hurt your star ranking.
Right.
That's just you're not able to stay healthy. That by itself, I mean, it's just one of those things. If we look at the pros, just shift the gears slightly for a second. You look at the pros, like Tua at Miami always has a hard time every year staying healthy. He is a phenomenal quarterback. No one's ever going to deny that. But it will be hard for him to get the Hall of Fame because of how consistently how consistently hurt he is, because that's just knocking him out for so many stretches of time that it messes with his stats.
No, I mean, I agree with you. Yeah. Like a player, if you go further back, Steve Young, he only played 9 years, or he only actually started about 9 years, but he had to retire early because of concussions. So I feel like, back in the 90s, it was actual football. You didn't get a flag for just two-hand touching someone. But it kind of goes to show that hey, you can have all the talent in the world, and you could be an accurate passer, smart passer. Because Tua, I believe, is actually a really great passer, smart player.
Yeah.
But like you said, if he keeps getting concussion one after another, the value of the player goes down, and especially in college football.
He wasn't just injured. He's not just injured in the NFL. He was also consistently injured in college too.
Yeah, Hurts always had to step up for him.
Yeah.
They were going back and forth.
Hurts had to step up because Tua was hurt.
Yeah.
Exactly. So it's just one of those things. I think there needs to be some real evaluation of these players when they're going into the portal, because their star number doesn't really indicate how good they are. It very much could, but it also, if they didn't play because they were a freshman, I can see why you wouldn't necessarily want to mess with their star rating, but at the same time, it doesn't. It should be like a different color star. You know what I mean? It's like
formerly
like-
formerly a blue chip player.
yeah,
It's like,
like-
Prince, artist formerly known,
yeah, well, exactly.
formerly known as
Like,
5-star.
because they're not really a 5-star
That's
college
like the longest
player.
yard.
Well, they're not a 5-star college player.
Right.
They're a 5-star high school player.
Yeah.
And so you want to denote that difference because
Well,
that does make a
Yeah.
difference.
I feel like depending on what sites you actually use when you're seeing like the transfer rankings too as well.
True.
It literally was like some of these will show like, hey, this person in 2021 was a 4-star recruit
Yeah.
coming out of high school. So
Yeah.
some of these sites will actually could be a bit more
Yeah.
specific. But I feel
think-
like
is it on 3 that usually is the one that's a little bit more accurate with stuff like that?
yeah.
Yeah. But anyways, I mean, again, all of like Colorado and Ole Miss are both setting themselves up for like either a really good bowl game or a playoff berth next year, and
Yeah.
they want to make sure that they're not losing momentum. That's very clear.
Yep.
I mean, even like some of the other ones that are in this, like you've got Louisville, you got TCU, South Carolina. They all know that they've got problems, and they're trying to address them.
And some of the teams that are kind of faltering, USC
Oh yeah,
is-
losing a lot of people.
is losing a whole lot of players. I mean, especially when you have Caleb Williams, who obviously is going to the draft, but then your kind of 5-star, freshman quarterback that was right behind him. What's his name?
I can't remember.
I
his
can't
name.
even think of it right
Yep.
now. Malachi Nelson.
There you go.
Malachi something Nelson, I think it is. But like he even transfers
Mm-hmm.
and he goes into the portal, and you just kind of wonder, what's going on at USC, especially when you're going to a new conference. They're joining the Big Ten, so it's kind of this like, what is happening? I think it's the thing that I love about the portal, thing I love about NIL is that it is this every year is different. You can have a great recruiting class, you can have great players coming back, but what are you going to do in the portal? It's just interesting. Ohio State has lost a lot of big name guys. Our quarterback is gone. We're losing Chip Trainum, who was our backup this year, but played significant minutes because Trevion Henderson was hurt. He went to Kentucky. So we've lost again 14. Florida State's losing 14. And so you just go, what are they going to do? Like they're going to have to get some talent out of the portal. They're going to have some, young guys step up. So it's going to be an interesting how this affects not just the teams that are trying to get into the playoffs, but the teams that maybe were in the playoffs and their guys want to go somewhere else to get starting time, to get whatever.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple schools that actually. I was talking to you about this yesterday, Michael, where Oregon really surprised me with the 2 transfers that they got.
Yeah.
Dante Moore and they got Dylan Gabriel.
Yep.
I was really surprised getting 2 top transfer quarterbacks. I love the way Dante Moore was actually playing when he was at UCLA. I was a little disappointed that he left UCLA. I have a kind of a soft spot for that school.
Yep.
So I was like, why'd you leave? Chip Kelly, what are you doing? Like, he was a great player. But I really want to see what Oregon is actually trying to do. Like, I know Dylan Gabriel's only going to play basically 1 year, and he's going to be basically one and done. But I wonder, I guess, how Oregon is also going to keep continuing progressing that talent and how, they doubled down on quarterback. I want to see what they did. Dante Moore did have some playing time. He showed that he could be a player. So, like, some of these schools are just doubling down. I'm like, yeah, you guys are really playing it hard to play when it comes to this stuff.
Right. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, again, it'll be interesting to see how this it continues to change our just the outlook,
Playing field,
the dynamic of the sport itself, especially with going into the 12-team playoff, and just seeing how other teams that normally wouldn't be in the spotlight for contesting for it, and actually legitimately contesting for it, unlike TCU last year, who looked like they were going to be a legitimate contender until they actually played some actual competition.
Right.
And so it's just like one of those things. Like it will, I think, even out some of the overpowered teams like the Ohio States, the Georgias, the Alabamas of the past 10 years, 15 years. But I don't think it's going to really hurt them that much. It's just more of you're just gonna see some of these the depth. They're just not gonna have the depth that they've always had.
Right. You're gonna see, and I mean, again, if you really want to dig into like again, taking Ohio State to mention, most of the guys that were leaving were guys who were second string, third string, were juniors and seniors who weren't going to get as much playing time. So it's interesting to see how it's going to play out. But yeah, you're going to see some of that talent go other places and disperse a little bit and kind of even out the playing field.
Yeah, which there's nothing wrong with that. It's actually just makes it more parity and more fun.
Makes it more fun. I mean, when you're looking at teams that didn't do well last year, but then now all of a sudden they had a good portal year, and they're in the top of their conference. They're striving for a, championship, a playoff berth.
Yeah,
it's going to make it fun.
Oh, it's going to show as well too. I feel like more on the coaches, especially the old school coaches who don't really believe in the transfer portal, or just like they like it but they don't really participate much in it. Mm-hmm. Like I said, some schools are going to have a tremendous that you mentioned in Bama, where earlier we were like, hey, why didn't you get a quarterback in the transfer portal? All of a sudden, hey, you know what? Maybe they didn't need one. That's why. Right. Like it depends heavily on the coaches and how the coach can also be able to kind of more or less like mold the player's skill set into that same offense and be able to kind of be able to distinguish that. And young coaches, old coaches still have to adapt to that, but I feel like young coaches are probably going to be able to adapt better to that. True. Than the old coaches being just tremendously old school when it comes to the thing.
True. Yep. Well, we can continue to talk about future football, but we have some previous football, football in the past, just from the past couple of days that we do need to talk about real quick before we go and start talking about some future football again. But this past, I'm just getting crazy. All timeline, timey-wimey stuff. That's for all those Doctor Who fans out there, which I'm not one. I
was confused myself.
That's for you. I'm not one.
I'm not one, but I just know all about your verbiage. Yeah. Because you guys clearly watch our show.
Apparently you do.
This past weekend, I know, right? This past weekend, there was some.
There were games.
There were games. There were bowl games.
Yeah.
But I will say that the best bowl game for sure this past weekend was Western Kentucky versus Old Dominion.
It was.
Like, granted, you would just never think that the Toastery Bowl would be something, but it's clearly famous because that's its title.
Well, it's also what it's going up against for the past week. I mean, there's not a whole, the Myrtle Beach Bowl and the Cricket Celebration Bowl. There's not a whole lot, but that bowl game was a lot of fun. Old Dominion looked like they were going to just run away with this thing. Yeah,
and then I don't know what happened, but Western Kentucky rallied.
They put in their backup quarterback. It might have been their third. I don't even know. Yeah. They put in a different quarterback,
and it just clicked.
And
it went from 28-0 to 38-35 Western Kentucky.
Overtime win, which is awesome. Super cool. Mm-hmm.
And again, that's what and I think Josh Pate was talking about this, is that's what makes bowl games great.
Yeah.
Bowl games are so much fun because of stuff like that. You cannot get that in professional football.
No.
And just because you don't really see those types of comebacks. And
it's really rare.
It's incredibly rare. And because a team that's off just stays off in the pros.
Right.
They're for that game. They might turn on the next. They might be.
They usually try to get.
Yep. But that same game, when they're off for the entire night. Regardless of what their coaching staff does. So it's just that was definitely something that was really fun to watch. It was just if you haven't watched the game, go back, watch the highlights.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you look at the quarterback for Western Kentucky, though. He was 40 for 52, 383 yards, 5 TDs, 1 pick. Mm-hmm. And then you look at the receiving core. There isn't really one particular receiver that kind of stood out. No receiver was 100 yards.
Which is what you want.
He spread the ball.
That's what you want.
100%.
Makes it so
hard.
So
it just goes how was Old Dominion supposed to even defend versus that? Yep. You don't know who.
Yep, exactly. Yep. So, but that leads us into this week's bowl games right before the good old Christmas that we've got.
They're getting a little bit better.
We're
just taking a step up. We're going from the 6-6 teams to the
7-5,
7-5, the 8-4 teams. So we're getting a little bit better.
And then the one random 11-1.
Yeah, right.
Which you guys want to talk about that one?
Sure.
That bowl game? You know what I'm talking about? Yeah. You guys know what I'm talking
Well, I mean, I wanted to talk about the Utah Northwestern game.
Oh, okay.
I thought that was going to be fun.
Oh, well, I mean, you guys have been talking so all year they've been talking about how the fact that James Madison wasn't going to get a bowl game.
We wanted to build up to it, okay?
Right.
We were
and
wanting obviously they were
dramatic effect here, man.
obviously NCAA.
Showmanship.
Obviously, the NCAA have been listening to our show, specifically your shorts, because that's where you've been really talking about it the most.
I'm kind of a big deal.
Clearly. So James Madison actually did get their bowl game, and they're going to be playing Air Force.
They are the favorite.
Yes.
They're the favorite to win.
They got, well, I mean, it's Air Force. So,
It's true.
But
Air Force
James
tickets.
Madison got their bowl. I mean, mainly because there were not enough teams
There wasn't enough teams.
that were bowl eligible, so they got in by the skin of their teeth.
Literally.
I don't know what that means, but I've heard it said before. But yeah, so they're going to play Air Force. That's going to be at 2:30 on Saturday. That's going to be in the Lockheed Martin Armed Forces Bowl, which
Lockheed.
Air Force Lockheed.
It's
Lockheed. Sorry.
The Lockheed Martin.
I might need to get glasses.
The Lockheed Martin.
Lockheed Martin. But yeah, so it's going to be fun. I mean, kudos to James Madison.
Yep, agreed.
They don't need to continue with their threats of lawsuits. FSU should take a little bit of a note from that. But, that's for another day. But, so yeah, it'll be fun. I'm glad James Madison's there. On Saturday, I will be a Duke. Hopefully honorary. Hopefully you guys will accept me as one of your own for a day.
Yeah, at least for a few hours, and then you'll be a Utes.
Then I'll be a Ute.
Yeah.
And then at some point I'll be a Buckeye again.
Yep. Eventually, it'll be next week when
Next
you guys
week.
play Missouri.
And possibly lose.
I mean, it's
Possibly.
very possible.
And anything's possible.
That's true. I mean, Missouri's got their entire team playing, so
I could have hair the next episode.
it's also possible.
I don't think that's gonna happen.
Not probable.
Like,
No, not
Santa does not grant those wishes.
He does
No,
not.
he could. I mean, one of the games that I'm interested in is going to be the Georgia Tech UCF game. UCF started really turning it on this past they really hit their
The end of
stride
the season.
into the season. Georgia Tech has been all upset central the entire season. They've not been phenomenal, but they've upset some decent teams.
Played well when they needed to at times.
Yep. So that's on Friday. That's in the Union Home Mortgage. What's the Jasperilla Bowl? Goodness gracious.
Gasparilla.
I think it's Jasperilla.
Okay. Well,
I don't know.
tell us what we're.
Tell us how we're
supposed
supposed to pronounce that. People from Jasperilla or Gasparilla.
Like I said, Utah Northwestern. I think that's going to be a fun one. You've got
Yeah,
Utah,
that's
who
gonna
has
be
kind
fun.
of played spoiler a little bit this year, who's had their own issues.
On
With they had their Cam Rising, obviously, who got hurt. They also had one of their star tight ends get hurt early in the year, but they kind of just stuck around and they did what they needed to do to win games. Defense hung around, and they're playing against Northwestern, who, in the same sense, kind of had all the odds stacked against them this year, and came in and new head coach who took over weeks before the season started, and then was given the full-time job. I think 10 weeks in, something like that, and 6-6 for that Northwestern team. I mean, I think I was calling them winning one at the beginning of the year, 1 or 2.
Yeah.
So they playing really well. So I mean, again, more kudos to Northwestern, kudos to Utah for being at the SRS Distribution Las Vegas Bowl.
Like, I'm kind of curious too in Northwestern, like, for them to make it actually to the bowl game, they actually won their last 3 games.
Yeah.
So they're on a win streak right now. I wonder how it's
Yeah.
going to transfer to this.
Yeah.
So,
And granted, they're about to play a pretty good Utah
team.
defense.
I mean, they played Iowa. They only lost to Iowa 10-7.
That's fair, but
I'm just saying.
Utah's offense is far better than Iowa's.
So are the other 130-something teams that are.
Yeah, it's pretty easy to be better than Iowa's
me,
offense.
all 3 of us can go play in the, and we'd
probably be better.
Yeah.
And one last one that we can't really sleep on is Coastal Carolina. Coastal Carolina versus San Jose State. San Jose State has been pretty competitive all year.
Yep.
Coastal Carolina is a fun team to watch play. They're kind of like Appalachian State. They're
Yep.
just
You just never know what's going to happen.
You never know what's going to happen. They
And
play with a lot of
if
vigor.
you forget about it, San Jose State was the team that almost upset USC
At the
very beginning of the year.
season.
So before they were bad, San Jose State almost beat them.
They were San Jose State was basically giving everyone a taste of what
Yep.
USC was actually going to be this year.
Well, at least their defense.
At least the defense. Yep.
So,
So Anyways, well, that does it for tonight's tailgate. Thanks again for joining us. Come back next week, grab a drink, and join the conversation.